नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय मिने तापहारिणे. Today we shall know something about peace and war. In the afternoon, one of our Brahmachari Maharaj was telling me, "What is your topic today? Peace and war." And I said, "Not peace and war, peace or war. Peace and war, they cannot go together. So it's not and, but it is or. Peace or war. Generally, we monks are averse to discuss politics. So no politics will be discussed here, no political events. But today, we have this virus problem. The whole mankind is suffering. So much of suffering all around. In addition to that, as if that is not sufficient, some border tensions are there for us. Some skirmishes are happening. So, how important peace is. What Swami Vivekananda said on war, you may be interested to know, because Swamiji belonged to the second half of 19th century. He did not see the First World War, Second World War, and no other major war that took place in 20th century. But there have been wars throughout the course of human history. There was a Boer War going on, I think 1899, 1901. Second Boer War. Somebody asked Swamiji, "What is your opinion on that?" Swamiji said, "I don't want to discuss politics." But he exclaimed, "It is terrible, it is terrible." He said English would win, but at what fearful cost, he said. In one letter that he had written to Sister Christine from Los Angeles, Swamiji said, "The English are getting it hot from Boers." And he said, "It is terrible. How long will it take for human beings to become civilized?" Swamiji's exact language is, "How long it will take for man to become civilized?" He was not happy with what was happening there. So the bloodshed, Swami says, it is human folly, a human mistake. God never expects us to fight with each other. But the fights happen, wars happen. We have seen throughout the history. Why wars happen? Because of the limited identity that we take up. It could be a national identity, it could be an ethnic identity, it could be a racial identity, it could be a linguistic identity, or some other, sectarian identity, limited identity. Or for economic and political reasons also, wars happen. If you just see the history, the 20th century, 100 years, 1912 and 1913, there was that first Balkan War, and second Balkan War, before First World War. And then First World War from 1914 to 1918. The First World War, 9 million people died. Okay, 9 million is a big number. And then there was Second World War, some 75 to 80 million people died in that war. The bloodiest human conflict, Second World War. Maximum human casualties. 3% of the global population had been wiped out. Why all such wars had happened? The human folly. Okay? No external force was responsible for that. Human beings were solely responsible for such conflicts. You can ignite a war, but you can't stop it that easily. It's easy to ignite a war, but it's not easy to stop a war. All sense of reasoning, all sense of reason, everything will go away. Human being will become like a savage. Everything is right in war, they said, like that. So, are we really civilized? If you see the history, no. So Vivekananda Swami made that remark, how long will it take for man to become civilized? When he saw the Boer War, that happened in the last decade of the 19th century in South Africa. So why have we not learned from history? Have we learned our lessons from history? We have not. First World War, had we learned our lesson, the Second World War would not have happened. And then after Second World War, there was Korean War. Around 5 million people died. Korean War. Then afterwards, the Vietnam War. Vietnam War also nearly around maybe some 1 to 1.5 million people died. And afterwards, this Balkan War, disintegration of Yugoslavia. Some 2 lakh to 2.5 lakh people died. And now we have this Syrian civil war going on. Some 5 6 lakh people have already died. There are so many such conflicts, civil wars, war between country and country, human conflicts, human folly. That means there is that genuine longing for peace is not there. You don't consider people like Buddha and Gandhi as real heroes. So we kill each other. What does that mean? We have not become civilized as yet. But today, for the kind of weapons that we have accumulated, that we have invented, right? The nuclear arsenals. The next war will be a nuclear war for sure. Every country, whichever country actually that will get into war, will use nuclear arsenals. So we need to be very careful. So one Scottish astronomer, Sir Arthur Keith, he said, the future course of human history is not determined by what happens in the skies, but it will be determined by what happens in human heart. The future course of human history is not determined by what happens in the skies, in the sense that we operate the machine. So the man who operates the machine is more important than the machine as such. We operate these nuclear arsenals, they are in our hands. Where you use is very important. If they get into an irresponsible human being, the whole humanity will come to grief. So that's why Mahatma Gandhi has said that non-violence cannot be the weapon of the weak. Only strong people can practice non-violence. That longing for peace doesn't happen with everybody. And today you just see, all around this warmongering. I don't say with great majority of the people, but it's considerable. There is warmongering among people. See, if there is something, we need to teach a lesson to that country. This is all, because he's not actually alien to you. He's your neighbor. You're your brother after all. These national identities are also not real. We need to develop that universal identity. That is what Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam means. One earth, one humanity. We're all inhabiting the same earth. The cloud that floats in the sky doesn't make any distinction between country and country. It doesn't see the geographical borders. It doesn't say that I will rain only in India, I will not rain in Pakistan, will it say? The wind actually that blows, it doesn't say that I will blow only in India, I will not go to that country. It will not say. The sun that shines in the sky, it doesn't say that actually I will shine only on this particular territory, I will not shine there. So nothing in nature actually makes any distinction between one territory and another territory. We human beings, we ought to act as responsible human beings. We're all children of one God. We need to cooperate with each other. But if you just see the history, so many wars have happened, so much of bloodshed has taken place. Fine, gatam gataha. Past is past. Have we learned the right lesson? And hereafter, can you give an assurance to that posterity? We have become responsible and there will not be wars anymore? That's not the scene, right? There are skirmishes going on, there are conflicts happening, and there are provocation all around. That means we have not become that responsible as yet. What are we to do? How can we avoid conflicts? What is the responsibility of every human being? There should be that genuine longing for peace in every heart. The greater the number of such people, the greater the peace that will prevail in this world. That genuine longing that we are all one family, we are all inhabiting the same earth. There is that fraternal feeling, there should be this fraternal feeling between people of all the countries. Day before yesterday, we celebrated this Universal Brotherhood Day. Why did we celebrate that Brotherhood Day? We're all brothers and sisters. The whole earth is actually brothers and sisters. That's how Vivekananda addressed the Chicago Parliament, brothers and sisters of America. You are not alien to us. You are not separate from us. We have a kinship. We're all relatives. We're all children of same God. We feel it from the bottom of the heart. Not because you belong to a different nationality, you are completely different from me. But we take these limited identities very seriously, the national identities. I'm an Indian, so the person belongs somebody who belongs to the other nation actually. He's not related to me. He's an alien. We should not look like that. We have this relationship with every human being on the planet Earth. We are a human species. So all the people inhabiting this earth are my kith and kin only, are my brothers and sisters. So that idea of universalism, that fraternal feeling must be there. Then only actually there will be that bonhomie, that camaraderie, that fraternal feeling between nation and nation. But we are all in competition with each other. Just as in a society, individuals are in competition with each other. Nations are also in competition with each other. For what? Let me become a better economic power than my neighbor. Let me become a better military power than my neighbor. So this is the competition we have gotten into. Today, if you just see Olympics, the original objective is to promote this brotherly feeling between country and country, to promote this fraternal feeling. We're all one family, we're all inhabiting one earth. So now you just see, it's almost like a wow. We have set up sports academies, such intense training is given. Sports persons, they exert themselves so much of tension and stress. There's an intense identification with one's own nation. The original objective is not being served as much as actually it should serve. See, when you watch a sport, it doesn't matter the person belongs to your country or for some other country. What you need to appreciate there is individual skill, the genius, right? It doesn't matter if he belongs to some other country, he has exhibited a great talent, you appreciate. After all, he is your brother, maybe belong to another nation. But today we are just like playing the sports like a wow. So we identify with our own nation so intensely, so strongly, and then all these things will happen. Somehow I must win medal for my country. Is it that important? Everybody should understand that. Is it that important to win a medal? Sport, why we play sport? Just to have some fun. You just see, you just appreciate the talent, skill of the sports person. Doesn't matter to which country he or she belongs. But somehow we have lost that, the sense, as it were. And we take it so seriously, the sport also. The individual must win the medal. And then you just imagine the kind of tension and the stress that the sports person undergoes. The best coaches are employed, best training facilities are provided. Somehow you have to win. Is it that important? I'm asking. All the countries in the world have become like this. No, that's not the way to play. You should be relaxed. You should be stress free. Medals are not important. You just play sport for the sake of sport, that's all. And the people who watch it also should appreciate, irrespective of individual, irrespective of the nationality to which he belongs, nation he or she belongs. So that original idea is to promote this idea of one earth, one humanity. So there should be some occasion for us to intermingle with each other. Otherwise, we are confined to our own borders. Our neighbor is confined to, no, his or her own borders, and we never interact with each other. Then there might develop some misunderstanding. So I am superior to you, and you ought to serve me. Or I can invade you because I am more powerful than you militarily. Or some idea of superiority, inferiority. All these things will come up, and that might, endanger the peace of both the nations. On ideological grounds, huge battles were fought. The Korean War between communists and the democratic forces, the Vietnam War between communists and the democratic forces. Just for the sake of an ideology, you ignited a war that took such a heavy toll on both military personnel and civilians. So when North Vietnam invaded the South Vietnam, the communists invaded the South Vietnam. US went to the defense of South Vietnam. And they thought actually in 3, 4 months, 5, 6 months, the war would be over. But you would be surprised to know the war continued for 20 years, nearly, from 1955 to 1975. One of the bloodiest wars fought in the recent history. That's why I say you can ignite your war, but you can't stop it. So you must make all out efforts to prevent your war. You must be peace loving. So it is savagery. That means human being has become so ugly. He has ignited a war and is fighting with such modern weapons. He has invested so much of genius there and is killing fellow human beings. Only human being is capable of making himself extinct. No other animal does that. No other species works against its own interest. But human beings, as human beings, we are capable of doing that today. And so, what I want to tell you is that the education that we learn in schools and colleges doesn't really help us to become a great human being like Buddha or Mahatma Gandhi. So, it's very important that you become a peace loving individual. The thoughts of peace, that it's all one earth and one family. Let me not have any ill feeling or any kind of bitterness towards other human beings. Maybe they belong to a different race, maybe they belong to a different nationality, maybe they belong to a different religion, but we all have a common bond. We all belong to the same human species. If that idea, that awareness, if it is there with you all the time, then you will be a peace loving individual. In Bible, Christ said that on the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. I frequently quote this quotation, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are the peacemakers and peace seekers, they shall be called children of God. A true child of God is he or she who is a peacemaker and peace seeker at an individual level and at a collective level also. Then if every individual, society means what? Group of individuals. Nation means what? Group of individuals. If all the people in the society or all the people in the nation are peace seekers and peace lovers, then there will be peace. At a family level, and also at a national level. There will not be any conflicts, then there will not be any wars. There will not be any conflict, there will not be any wars thereafter, because every individual is seeking peace. Only when there is peace, education can happen, culture can happen, spirituality will flower and flourish, creative skills will come forth. So that is the minimum thing, right? Only when peace is there, all these things will be possible. And do we want peace or war? Everybody wants peace. But are we really longing for peace from the bottom of our heart? We need to question ourselves. The real war is not PUBG game, right? Real war is not PUBG game. People are taking it very lightly. You have to see the visuals now available from Second World War onwards in a video game. All such things should be shown to children. This is what happens if there is a real war. And then that warlust won't be there with an individual. The warmongering will get uprooted completely if you see the visuals. What would happen if the physical war, if the real war happens? How ugly human consciousness would become. How ugly human consciousness could turn to. The history bears ample testimony to this. All kinds of war crimes, all kinds of human rights violations take place. You don't become a rational human being. You don't remain a rational human being anymore. the floodgates, your heart becomes actually a volcano of hatred. But God actually asks us to make your heart, okay, a spring of love, an oasis of love. Instead of making that, you have made your heart, okay, a volcano of hatred. You'll spew it all around. Everywhere, the bitterness will be there, bitter hatred between country and country, between people and people. This is not good. So that means you are just, the border, you are just sitting on it. If you don't know how to handle yourself, instead of going towards that direction, you will, can go in a reverse direction also. Human beings will become insane. History bears testimony to this. So, if war happens now, because we have got nuclear arsenals, there is no victor and vanquished. We both have fought. I have become the victor and you have become the vanquished. No, 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 no such thing is going to happen. Both will become extinct. Both will become vanished. Okay? Both will become vanished from the face of the earth. That is the level of technology we have, created. That is the level of, you know, intelligence we have invested in creating what? Weapons. Why so much of money, so much of human genius has gone into creating weapons? Fear of your neighbor. I fear my neighbor. I have so much of distrust. I don't know. He might invade me. He might enslave me. That's the fear. Why have you never bothered? Why have you not bothered to dispel this fear in the first place? Instead of creating weapons, you could have done that. You could have told your neighbor, you are my neighbor. You are my brother after all. Why should I fear you? Why this much of expansion doesn't come in our hearts? Why this is not thought? Because this nationality feeling, this is your country, your country. It's not that important. Universal identity you must establish. You have kinship with all other animals also, all other species also. We're all created by on the same Lord. The same life principle exists in all the beings. So this is thought, if it's frequently, again and again, if this idea is given into the minds of people in all the countries, then there will be bonhomie, there will be camaraderie. Why should I fear you? After all, you're my brother. This much of time and this much of energy, this much of money, billions and billions of dollars, countries are investing in creating war arsenals because of fear of the neighbor. That idea that we are all actually human species, we're all one humanity, that we need to cooperate with each other, we should never get into conflict with each other, right? Conflict happens because of this selfishness. Let me become a more powerful economic power than you. Let me become a more powerful military power than you. Why such a desire? Why should I get into competition with my brother? Right? The idea of brotherhood is not there. It has gone. You belong to a different nation means you are a completely separate individual. You are my enemy. That's why I distrust you. This is what we are saying. When you're piling up arms, what you are saying is, I don't just distrust you. You are my enemy. You might attack me anytime. I have that fear. And we live in fear of them and they live in fear of us. Okay. This is not a great civilization. So there is a long way to go for human being to become civilized. So the genuine longing for peace should be there. As Mahatma Gandhi said, non-violence cannot be the weapon of the weak, he says. A satyagrahi is an individual who fortifies himself with that determination not to kill, not to harm, but to suffer. I suffer, but I don't inflict suffering upon you. I don't hate you, but I only hate the antagonism that you have towards me. So Satyagrahi aims to kill not the antagonist, but the antagonism in the individual. How does the Satyagrahi does that? Not actually by creating more antagonism by hating the individual, but I take more suffering than you take, and I give comfort to. I don't inflict suffering upon you. I take the suffering. So it would help the other person actually to think, to grow. Here is a man who doesn't hate me. He takes the suffering. Actually, I should have taken the suffering, but instead of inflicting suffering on me, actually, he takes the suffering upon himself. So, this kind of attitude will provide an opportunity to your opponent to think and act wisely. Then he'll become more sane. Otherwise, actually, Buddha said hatred cannot be conquered by hatred. He is throwing bombshells of hatred upon you, and you throw bombshells of hatred upon him. Then what will remain? Only hatred will remain. Hatred cannot be conquered by hatred. Hatred can be conquered only by love. For that, you need to take more suffering upon you. That's why Mahatma Gandhi says non-violence cannot be the weapon of the weak. Only weak people tend to be violent. Only weak people take to weapons. Only weak people kill others. Only weak people inflict suffering upon others. Only weak people tend to become selfish. Only weak people tend to act upon limited identities. Limited identities in the sense it could be national identity, racial identity, religious identity, ethnic identity. The disintegration of Yugoslavia, one of the bloodiest recent wars, ethnic. They, this is ethnicity problems. It's a very limited identity. And then this is the problem. You are completely separate from me. My identity is separate, your identity is separate. So this is how actually we become, irresponsible and take up to weapons, ignite wars, and afterwards the consequences will be there for all of us. So it's very important we conduct responsibly. And for that, actually, education should become a tool. God has sent us here to cooperate with each other, not to compete with each other. This idea should be there with us all the time. If you forget this, why we forget? Why we enter into conflict with others? This is you're separate because you belong to a different nation. You belong to a different religion. You belong to a different sect. You belong to a different linguistic identity. So my identity doesn't match with your identity. So then you come in conflict with others. And then where is the sign of civilization? When you use such sophisticated weapons to kill, to suppress your fellow human beings, your brothers, where is the civilization? How can you consider yourself a civilized human being? I'm asking. It's savagery, human savagery. So we need to think, we need to reflect, we need to act more responsibly for that reason. Materialism, of course, is responsible for the Second World War. Apart from that, ultra nationalism, too much of materialism, where I want to have a larger slice of life. So because I'm more powerful than you, I oppress you, I suppress you, I kill you. And all of your resources also, I will aggrandize for myself. This is how actually the conflicts will arise. If you see the history again, irresponsible human beings, if they happen to gain power, it's not sometimes, war between a nation and nation, not that all the people in that country are willing to fight a battle, or all the people in the other country are willing to fight a battle. The person who is wielding power, if he is a despot, is an irresponsible human being. He will endanger the lives of the entire nation. To satisfy the individual political ambition or ego or pride, he will ignite a war, and which will not be in his hands afterwards to control. That's how actually the history shows actually. Things have happened that way in the past. It's very important that why we read history, not just to learn some dry facts that this battle happened in this year and these many people have died. Are you doing something to prevent such an event not to happen again? Have we become more responsible now? We have to think like that, and then otherwise, why should we read history? It's a waste of time. Such instances should not occur again. Okay, you have to learn this lesson. That's why I told you the videos must be shown, so all warmongering will go away. Anybody, for political reasons, or to satisfy the individual whim or fancy, or to satisfy the nationalistic pride, if ignites a war, his or her soul will be condemned to hell for eternity. That's for sure. Because the sin of killing so many innocent people will come upon your soul. And it is not easy to expiate from that kind of sin. If you are a non believer, then I have nothing to say. But there is a higher law that is operating through the universe. If you become responsible for loss of such a huge amount of life because of your irresponsible conduct, because of your individual whim or fancy or unfounded nationalistic pride, your soul would be condemned to hellfire for sure. That's why actually Jesus said that blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. That means the opposite is true. Those who are disturbing the peace of the world, those who have got this warmongering, those who ignite war, the reverse happens with them. They can't be children of God for sure. So this much of sense should come into our being. Whereas just, the peace is a very fragile peace, what if you ask me? So when I look at the people who are ruling the world now, I mean, who are heads of the different states, you need to pray because we don't know. As the Scottish astronomer said, Arthur Keith, the future course of human history is not determined by what happens in the skies. Machines are in our hands. Who operates the machine? Weapons are in our hands. Who operates the weapons? Human being. So human being is more important. What kind of human being? What thoughts you have? How much of love you have in your heart? Whatever intentions, whatever feelings, they are more important. We all know, the great war, Mahabharata war that took place in this country. Krishna goes and tells Duryodhana, okay, give 5 villages to your cousins and prevent war. Duryodhana did not listen. We all read in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hruddeshe arjuna tishtati. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. I dwell in all beings as their inner operator. So I operate all these machines, human machines and also other beings. So all beings are in my control. There, when Krishna went to reason with Duryodhana, here is actually God in Saguna Sakara form, Krishna in human form, and there is Krishna dwelling in Duryodhana's heart also. So this Krishna has come in conflict with that Krishna. This Krishna who is in Saguna Sakara, who is in human form, is reasoning with that Krishna who is dwelling in the heart of Duryodhana. Ultimately, because Duryodhana, who operated Duryodhana from within, actually, the Lord Himself, right? He is dwelling in the hearts of every being. He was there in Duryodhana's heart also. But he was helpless. Why? This Krishna was interacting with that Krishna. Why Duryodhana did not yield to his suggestion? Duryodhana had brought certain samskaras with him when he was born. And that Krishna who was dwelling in the heart of Duryodhana was only prompting that particular samskara which he had inherited, which he had brought into the world. Nothing else. Because the Lord that if He is dwelling in your heart is just a sakshi. In His presence, the samskaras that you have gathered, and they play up all the time. So Duryodhana had gathered this samskara of jealousy, and he went on playing up all the time. He was so filled with this matsarya, jealousy towards his cousins. Nothing, no wise counsel appealed to him. Everything fell on deaf ears. And ultimately, he forced war. Of course, if you go a little further, it's all God's Leela. And Mother Earth actually, gave a representation to Brahma, and Brahma, through Brahma to Lord Vishnu, that I am not able to bear these, asuras. The asuras means people who are puffed up with pride, who are excessively materialistic, who understand only material values and nothing else, and who become corrupt, who are full of pride and egoism, and who don't value spirituality. So, such people who tell lies, who are cruel, hard hearted, all such people, Mother Earth says they can't bear them. So, relieve me of my burden. She goes and gives a representation to the Lord, and Lord incarnates, and then He ignites vase and then relieves the Mother Earth of her burden. That's what we read. So maybe ultimately Krishna thought actually it is necessary because to relieve the Mother Earth of her burden. That's what we study in the Mahabharata. Strangely, after the Mahabharata war was over, Yadavas who fought the war and who helped Krishna achieve his objective of lessening the burden of the earth, ignites an international quarrel among themselves. Okay, now Yadavas became very powerful. There was nobody to oppose them. They were almost irresistible. And Krishna thought actually a little more mission was left. It's okay. Not everything has been accomplished, and some more burden I need to relieve the Mother Earth of. And then what happened? He ignited a quarrel among the Yadavas. They are very powerful, they are all devoted to Krishna. He said, actually, I will take them off from this earth and then also I will draw curtains to my Leela, my Avatara Karya. So that's how actually he decided. Why when the Lord decides like it's okay, but from our part, we need to become responsible. We need to act in a responsible way. Such things happen, when there is too much of rajas in the world, too much of tamas, or if everybody is a sattvic individual, everybody lives with bare minimum, everybody is turned towards God, and there is so much of spirituality in the world, then no such thing will happen. So all the great poets and all the great mystics have condemned war. They spoke against war. Khalil Gibran says, should you sit upon a cloud and look at the earth, you would not see the border line between country and country, and also the boundary stone between one farm and another farm. It is a pity that you can't sit upon a cloud, he said. If you look from above, do you see the border between one country and another country? Are there borders real? No. Right? There's no clear boundary mark between one country and another country. No. You see only one continuous earth. Should you sit upon a cloud and look at the earth, you would not see the boundary line between country and country, and also boundary line and also border stone between one farm border stone and also the boundary stone between one farm and another farm. It's all one. This is you actually you have drawn these boundaries and say that this is mine, that is yours, and you are separate from me. And once war happens, what kind of justice prevails? He tells through a beautiful story. There was a king. A celebration was going on in the kingdom, in the palace. But suddenly, a thief comes and prostrates before the king and says, please give me justice. Please see that I get justice. The king asks actually, what happened? Then the thief introduces him as thief. I'm a thief. So, yesterday, it was a new moon day. I decided to break into the money changer's house. Okay, a lot of money would be there with money changers. But because it was a new moon day, I could not see anything. It was pitch dark. I broke into a weaver's house. So by mistake, one of the needle of that weaver's loom pierced into my eye, and I became blind like this. Yes, but that is the king said, your mistake. First of all, you are a thief. You wanted to break into money changer's house. Now, by mistake, you broke into weaver's house. It happened. Then what kind of justice you are seeking? No, I have lost my eye. So the viewer is responsible. Oh, the king said. Okay, bring the viewer. He asked his guards. They brought the viewer. So this thief broke into your house. And by accident, he lost his eye because your loom, the needle of your loom, pierced in his eye. So he wants justice. What justice you want? His eye also should be plucked out. And then the viewer says, oh king, wait. He says, to work on the loom, to see the cloth, I need two eyes. With one eye, I cannot work on loom. So my neighbor, who is a cobbler, he doesn't need eyes to do his shoe mending or shoemaking. Okay, you pluck out one of the eyes of the cobbler. So king listens to this weaver and calls for the cobbler. The gods bring the cobbler. And the king actually plucks out one of the eyes of the cobbler. What justice is there? Now the justice is happy. This is the kind of justice that prevails when war happens. That's what Khalil Gibran wants to convey through this story. How irrational it is. This thief broke into weaver's house. After all, he was a thief, right? You broke into the house and you lost your eye in accident, and you make the viewer responsible for that, and you call for the viewer, and the viewer comes and says that I am not responsible in the sense because I need two eyes that you just get the eye of the cobbler plucked out. The cobbler is no way in the context. That kind of justice will happen in war. You lose all your reason. You'll become totally insane. Okay, that's what he said. In the strongest terms, he condemns the war. All great people have done that. There is another story, same by Khalil Gibran. One mighty power getting into conflict with another mighty power. What would happen? A sheep and a lamb were grazing. A sheep was grazing along with its lamb. There was a big eagle about to stoop onto the lamb. And suddenly, before it could swoop onto the lamb, another big eagle came and attacked it, and they started quarreling. Huge creaking sound in the sky. Now, the sheep looked at the sky and told its lamb, "See, my child, your winged brother in the sky. That vast sky is not sufficient for your two winged brothers. They're fighting with each other. The sky is so vast, there is a need for them to fight with each other, but they are fighting. So just pray that God might make your winged brothers long for peace, not long for war." So this is a story that he tells. God has given us a beautiful earth, okay, out of his infinite compassion. We don't remember that all the time. So that we live in harmony with each other, we cooperate with each other, we don't become excessively self centered, we don't become too individualistic. But sometimes what happens? The wars happen. That means what? We don't know how to conduct ourselves responsibly. The genuine longing for peace has not happened with us yet. Power sometimes corrupts people. They become, almost irresponsible. It's a double-edged sword. You can make so much of good to happen in the world, or you can harm the interests of the people also. So, to digest power, to handle power positively for the good of humanity and for the good of society, we need to create right human beings, right kind of human beings. It is not easy to produce a person like Buddha or Mahatma Gandhi. It takes enormous tapasya on the part of the civilization of the nation to produce one such human being. India actually has produced many such great human beings, and we need to produce many such more in the future. How does that happen? We have started a program, R.A. Janani, one of our doctors, Dr. Anupama Reddy garu, Amma, and our team actually doing a wonderful job. Okay, if the child is born with prayer, he will be a peace-loving individual. For whole life, he will become a responsible human being. India is called Aryavarta, the land of Aryans. Aryan means a civilized human being. Who is a civilized human being? A human being who is peace-loving is a civilized human being. Who has got warmongering in his heart is not a civilized human being. We need to create more such civilized human beings, and the world needs that. So otherwise, our peace is actually hanging by thread. The peace of the world order. If these weapons get into the hands of the irresponsible human beings, it will be total destruction for the world. May no such thing happen. Let us all pray to the Divine Mother that these weapons they don't get into the wrong hands, into wrong people. So why there are wrong people? This is how. Swamiji also says that beautifully. An individual who is born of prayer is an alien. Human being is born God or born demon, he says. Very powerful statement, quoting from scriptures. Afterwards, to transform an individual is not easy. You have to come with the right stamp, he says. When the child is in the womb of the mother, if the mother prays, a great child will come into the world with tremendous power to do good to the world. You just imagine the power of Buddha or Mahatma Gandhi or Vivekananda or Shankaracharya. How much of good they have done during their own lifetimes, and also how much of power they have manifested. It's very important that we bring great human beings into the world. It's possible. If we consciously long for that, it will happen. Few such, let us just imagine 50 Buddhas are there in this world today. Then you are safe. You're safe. You don't have to fear a war. Nothing of that sort would happen. Their power will be so great. The 7.3 billion population one side, these 50 Buddhas are one side. They will impact the world positively. We have to aim for that kind of humanity. We have done enough, engineering, enough manipulation of matter. No more manipulation of matter is required. The technology that we have created is more than sufficient for us to lead a comfortable life in this world. Physical comfort, enough. We should not long for more of technology and more of physical comfort. You know, excessive materialism is not good. It promotes more sin. Because you have more things than I have, so I'll get into conflict with you. Okay. You enjoy more physical comfort than I enjoy, and then actually I feel envy of you. I might, feel jealous of you. Then I want to have more of such things, and all my energy will be spent in that direction only. I will not concentrate on improving myself as a human being, because I'm totally preoccupied with providing things for myself or accumulating things, physical things. First of all, it is you need to be born with the right stamp, and then you will have to struggle through education, through culture, through philosophy, to make yourself a better human being constantly. But you won't be able to do that because you're totally preoccupied with providing these physical things because there are too many available. That's what the whole world is today preoccupied with. Earlier days, in society, who is a great human being means somebody who has got great brains, somebody who is very kind and compassionate, somebody who is highly charitable. Such individuals are considered as great human beings. Today, all such things are not considered. Who is a great human being in a society? Somebody who has a lot of money. Somebody has a lot of money, somebody who is very popular, is a big human being, not somebody who is very kind and very truthful, very honest. He is not a great human being. Such human beings are not respected much. That means our priorities have got changed. And automatically, as they are not respected and they don't even care to be like that, they may not, cherish the values that they have. And they may also fall down unless the individual understands that I don't care for these physical things of the world. I need to have these qualities. I want to have these qualities for the sake of God, for the sake of my soul. And that will be fine. But what percentage of people will have that kind of strength, I'm asking? Very limited people. So it's very important that we bring great human beings into this world. It's not a small thing. It's not a small thing. We are not focused on that. Enough of technology. Now let us focus on human being, improving the quality of the human being. But as far as this country is concerned, India, till actually the whole world looks upon India with great respect and reverence because we have produced one Mahatma Gandhi and one Buddha. They all know that actually a country that has produced a Buddha and Mahatma Gandhi will not go for war, will not provoke any country for war. That means we act more responsibly than any other country in the world. That is our pride. We need to take pride in that kind of behavior, in that kind of culture. We need to take pride in these heroes. They are real heroes. And we must say this, show to the rest of the world also, these are the heroes that we have produced. Mahatma Gandhi is more popular in the West than in India today. They study in Western universities. Their life is being studied very seriously. So peace is not a sign of weakness. You know, there are people are using the words like war heroes. They cannot be war heroes. Peace heroes. Heroes. What is a war hero? What do you mean by war hero? Either you ignited war or you are forced to fight the war. We need to create peace heroes. Those who have the genuine longing for peace are the real heroes. The one gentleman, actually by name, Booker T. Washington, he said, "I will not allow anyone to degrade my soul by causing me to hate him." A beautiful statement. American thinker, educator. who lived in the second half of 19th century. I don't allow anybody to degrade my soul by causing me to hate him. If you hate anybody, you degrade your soul. You degrade yourself. Maybe in your family or because somebody belongs to some other nation. The hatred of any kind is a negative emotion. War actually creates such hatred. Flood of hatred will be unleashed into the society, into the countries. Many of these people of this generation, they have not experienced any physical war. That's why you don't know what it is. How ugly a human being will turn into. And also, millions will die in fright and terror. That's why I said that real war is not a PUBG game. You need to understand, not a video game. That will become a video game for you when you become a yogi. Because for a yogi, the whole world is a dream. We are not yogis as yet. We are trying to become yogis. For a yogi, the whole world is a dream. So war also part of the dream. Maybe tragedy, but part of the drama. For such individual, it will not affect psychologically. They will see it as the will of the Divine Mother, cosmic dance of the Divine Mother. And their peace won't get disturbed in the least. Even if the bomb explodes by their side, their peace won't get disturbed. Because he has become a yogi because he sees the whole world as a dream. But for all others who have stakes in the world, who have desires, who have hopes, who have objectives, ambitions, goals, they die in fright and terror. So, in my opinion, war creates maximum number of ghosts. I'm not an I'm not an eschatologist. Okay, I don't like this ghosts and other things. But the thing is, a bomb is exploded. What happens? The soul is forcefully gets disembodied from the body. Right? The individual has not prepared himself to leave the body. Right? You have hopes and objectives and ambitions. You just want to be here. You want to enjoy the world. Suddenly, a bomb exploded by your side, and the soul got, disjoined from the body by force. Where do you think the soul would go? The war creates maximum number of trauma, maximum number of anguish to maximum number of people. Human rights violations of the worst kind will take place. War crimes, you just see the kind of crimes the people have committed in the name of during the war. So, have we learned from our history? No. We have not learned our lessons as yet. We have not understood actually how to show these things. This is all human ugliness, ugliness of human consciousness. We should not allow such things to get repeated again. If these things are studied in that intention in school curricula, then automatically it gets implanted in the child's mind that I need to become a peace hero, not a war hero. So that warmongering won't be there completely. It's uprooted from the heart of the child. And if all the individuals in the world, when they become peacemakers like that, then it's a true humanity. And you are a true child of God. We all have to endeavor, we all have to make an attempt to create such humanity. That is culture, that is education, not just reading dry facts of history. It is not fresh in the minds of most people in the last 100 years, in the 20th century. How many wars have happened? How many people have died? What really happened there during the war? It is not fresh in the memory of the people. Though their videos are available today, we have got so much of content. Everybody has got his or her own video content. So you don't see them. You just see some of the videos warning is given. This is not for everybody. This video is not for everybody. If your heart is weak, don't see. That's what the advice is. Okay? Because it's so macabre, so frightening to look at. Oh, you'll exclaim. Such video should be shown. Then that warmongering won't be there. Then there will be people will be loving peace. It's important. We are all one humanity and one earth. That Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam idea is a great idea, and we need to give it to the rest of the world that we all belong to the same human species. We all are children of same God. There's one earth, one humanity. One earth, one humanity. The more actually the idea you give, infuse this idea into the minds of all the people in the world, then there will be longing. Then we don't need these arsenals, we don't need these weapons. And also many countries are spending billions of dollars on these weapons. Now this corona, this virus has affected the economies of all the countries. So much of poverty it has brought into the world all of a sudden. Nobody could anticipate this kind of an event. Nobody could anticipate this kind of a you know, suffering. All the countries, if they have this idea, this one earth, one humanity, I don't have to fear my neighbor, I don't have to live in such distrust of my neighbor, you can bring down your spending on defense. 50% of the defense spending is brought down. So I think this economic, suffering that this virus has induced can be mitigated to a great extent. So peace in that way helps economically. Also, a country, a society can progress economically if there is a longing for peace, because you don't have to spend so much on weapons. Let us pray to Divine Mother that better sense will prevail in the world, and all human beings will become responsible human beings, and they all will become peace lovers. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. हरि ओम तत्सत्. श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु.